All right, we're live. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Councillor Lee Hunt, Cabinet Member for Community Safety, Leisure and Sport. I've got some housekeeping safety information before we proceed any further. If the continuous fire alarm sounds, evacuate the room and the public gallery by the stairwells. Do not attempt to use the lifts. Please assemble by Queen Victoria's statue in the Guildhall. In order to comply with the Guildhall Trust Fire Marshal regulations, anyone who signed in at the Guildhall reception desk should sign out when leaving the building at the end of today's meeting. May I draw everyone's attention to the fact that this meeting is being, are we being live streamed? Is being live streamed. Please use the microphones and remember to switch them off when you have finished speaking, or the camera will stay on you. Members of the press and the public are also permitted to record the meeting on the understanding that it neither disrupts the meeting nor records those stating explicitly that they do not wish to be recorded. So the first thing I have to go through is the apologies for absence, and I have apologies from Councillor Brent, is that correct? And what I'll do now is go around the room, and I'll start with the opposition spokespersons on my left. And if you could introduce yourself, please.
I'm Councillor Emily Strudwick. I represent the Hillsey ward, and I'm part of Portsmouth Independence Party.
Councillor Yinka Deniro from Charles Dickens ward, Labour's party.
Oh, sorry. We have Toby from the news over there, waving at us. And we obviously have the gallery, and we'll start at the bottom with you, Rob.
Can you hear me now? Yeah, okay. Yeah, sorry, so I'm Rob Furman, I'm Head of Community Safety for Portsmouth City Council.
Adrian Rosier, I'm Parks Development Manager.
And did you just move your mic a little?
Sam Rickard, Private Sector Housing.
Thank you, Sam.
David Morman, Sports and Leisure Strategic Development Manager.
Jane.
Jane Dodino, Local Democracy Officer.
Sorry. Do you have any interest, members? No. All right. Obviously, there's a group of people in the chamber. I presume you are the Saving East Nepal group. Is that about right? Yes, very good. I've been following your posts, etc., with interest. And I understand that Mr. Gardner, who are you, sir? Mr. Gardner, that you've asked to make a deputation. Oh, the first thing I'm going to say is I'm going to move item 7 on the agenda up to item 1. So we'll consider this first of all, because I'm sure you've got a lot of things to get on with. The City Council's rules say on deputations, and let me finish, Mr. Gardner, will you, before we decide what to do. The Council may receive deputations on a matter where notice has been given, which is before the meeting of the Council for decision. The following rules will apply: that the notice of the intended deputation stating which agenda item it refers to, etc., must be given by 12 noon on the working day preceding, in other words, 12 o'clock yesterday. I checked and was surprised, I must admit, not to see any requests for any deputations. So I mailed officers just to make sure that they hadn't come in somewhere else, and they assured me no deputation had been received. And I understand, Jane, what time did you receive a request?
3:20 in the afternoon.
In the afternoon. Also, the rules say that the Council may waive the giving of notice in any case it considers appropriate. So in order for me, I believe, to reach a fair and considered opinion, I honestly believe that I should hear what you have to say on behalf of all of these people. That's the first thing. So if you, Mr. Gardner, would like to come up here to the table. And just drag the thing towards you a little bit, sir. All right, and you'll see a little knob there with hand. If you want to press it, just get it going. That's when you want to talk, that comes on. So if you turn it off for the moment. Thank you very much, sir. And it's 6 minutes, Mr. Gardner. And the rules are we don't do questions or interruptions thereafter. Is that all right? Is that understood? All right, sir. So what will happen next is our officer, Mr. Moorman, will present his report. I expect some of you have read it online, I hope. No? No, all right. Anyway, it's here. I suspect Mr. Gardner has read it. Beg your pardon?
All this came to us very late. Hence,
I accept that, sir.
Hence the very late request for
That's all right, sir.
deputation.
You're speaking, and there's plenty of you that know about it now, evidenced by the number of people in the gallery. Thanks to yourself for circulating it. And we appreciate that. Thank you very much indeed. So, have you got a copy of the report in front of you?
No.
Could someone give Mr. Gardner a copy of the report? It's on... Pardon? Oh, just the report, all right. Everybody's settled and ready, all right? Can you all hear well enough? Yeah, I wear this not because I want to be like Lieutenant Uhura on Star Trek, which some of you might recall, but because I can't hear very well. Okay? Mr. Moorman, over to you, sir.
Thank you, Councillor Hunt. So this report then concerns demolition of Eastleigh Swimming Pool. The pool is 121 years old and has reached the end of its life. It's been closed since it shut during the COVID-19 pandemic in March 2020. When it was open, it offered a very poor customer experience and effectively excluded very young children and due to its water depth and people with disability due to stepped access. It was not well used when open, due mainly to its inconvenient location, poor condition and poor customer experience, typically seeing 50% utilisation compared to about 95% at the Mountbatten Centre.
Sorry, I missed that bit.
So it was utilised about 50% of the available time compared to about 95% at the Mountbatten Centre. So it wasn't well used. And there were...
Was that open 7 days? Was that open 7 days a week?
Yeah, it was open to the same extent that the rest of the pools were open.
All right.
Historically.
I won't interrupt again.
Thank you. So I'm now going to summarise the 4 key reasons why demolition is now the right outcome. Firstly, the building is obsolete. Now, there remains the need for a swimming pool in the southeast of the city, which the City Council acknowledges, and to that extent has sought and now received planning permission for a replacement pool with additional learner pool, a gym and a GP surgery at Bransbury Park, 750 metres away. There is no apparent alternative use to which the building can realistically be put aside from a swimming pool. Secondly, the building condition is extremely poor. There are extensive defects to the building's roof, the brick structure, the pool tank, and the mechanical and electrical systems. Consequently, any future use of the site would almost certainly necessitate complete replacement of the majority of the building structure. In summary, there is no realistic refurbishment option for the building. Thirdly, there are pressing safety concerns. The building is closed to the public. Doors and windows are secured and boarded, but despite this we know there have been repeated break-ins over the past 5 years. The structural condition means that entry into the pool hall is unsafe and operator BH Live has informed us that they will no longer allow members of staff in. The pool is full of groundwater. When we drained it, it filled up again, and there are safety barriers around the pool, but there is a residual risk, I advise, of serious harm or death to people accessing the building, particularly to intruders, because they typically break in during night time. The lights are not normally on and the pool is full. In the event of an accident, the council would be liable. And fourthly, there is a lack of historic or architectural value to the building. It is an old building, and so it certainly is appropriate for us to consider whether it should be preserved. I'm grateful to Historic England for their assessment in 2021, which was very thorough. It's included in Appendix 1 to the report, and the conclusion was that it did not have the requisite historic or architectural interest to warrant preservation. The local planning authority does maintain a local list of buildings of interest. They refreshed this also in 2021 and at the time considered whether Eastney Swimming Pool should warrant local listing and concluded at the time that it didn't. So for these 4 reasons, I recommend that it is now demolished. Finally, just considering the future use of the site has been identified as suitable for a water sports hub with cafe, beach huts and new public toilets since 2013. That is across 2 separate iterations of the Seafront Master Plan and is earmarked for leisure use. The Council will soon be consulting with residents and other local stakeholders on what they would like to see on the site in future. This consultation will commence in March and April 2025. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Gardner, over to you, sir. You've got 6 minutes, and Mr. Dino here will time that and let you know when you've got a minute left, sir. Is that all right? All right, thank you very much.
I'm part of the admin team for a group with almost 2,500 members whose aim is to see the historical Eastney Pool where the Cockleshell Heroes trained refurbished. Just of this morning, Sharon Davis, the Olympic swimmer, has said that she happily supports our group. We are in the process of starting a judicial review into the planning permission for the Bransbury Park project and have already submitted a pre-action protocol to this council. The leader of the council has repeatedly stated that Eastney Pool can be refurbished, and it will be refurbished if there's public support for doing so. It has been clearly demonstrated the public support the refurbishment of Eastney Pool, with over 2,400 people signing a petition for saving the pool. This support was never mentioned in to the planning committee of the Bransbury Park project. Eastney Pool can be refurbished with modern facilities, including disabled access, disabled parking alongside the building, a learner's pool, and a various height pool floor for approximately half the cost of the Bransbury Park project. Sorry, I missed that piece. There is a government initiative to refurbish older buildings as opposed to demolishing them, because it's far more environmentally friendly to refurbish than to demolish and build from new. We've seen projects all around the country where pools of an equal age have been refurbished and brought back into life. The council has described Eastney Pool as obsolete. If that's the case, then Hilsey Lido is obsolete, and that's being refurbished with its 64-metre long pool for a cost of 8.2 million. The original cost for the alternative to Eastney Pool, Bransbury Park, was 12 million, which included a £2 million grant from Sports England. The public were told that the council had secured this grant, but it transpired not to be true. So the council don't have a grant and will be paying the whole amount. The current cost is 22 million. At the beginning of this process, when Bransbury Park was costed at 12 million, the council costed refurbishing Eastney Pool at 5.5 million. So using the council's own figures for inflation, Eastney Pool will cost approximately £10 million to refurbish, which would mean Eastney Pool could again be used for water sports such as polo, underwater hockey, which was invented at Eastney Pool by one of our members' fathers, actually. And the floor raised so the pool could be used for family and lane swimming. The new university pool has a variable height floor. With the adjacent land being earmarked for water leisure activities, the site could even have an open air pool, especially important with the state of the seawater. The planning permission for Eastney Pool's alternative, the Bransby Park project, was partly based on the last-minute public survey, which found 83% support the plans for Bransby Park. Please note, we had to use a freedom of information request to get any answers, but according to the freedom of information response, the public survey, which the chair of the planning meeting described as a bit of door knocking, was 400 homes in the area of Maureen's Way, which is a mile away from Bransby Park.
Mr. Gardner said that's 5 minutes, sir, just to let you know.
Right at the end, thank you. So we want to ask the question, why weren't the homes around Bransby Park surveyed? Why survey houses a mile away? The survey resulted in 163 responses, of which 83% support Bransby Park. But the freedom of information response, again, said that only 160 surveys were returned, of which 83% were in favour. So that's a number of 133, not 163. We only found out this morning that the survey involved one question. Do you want a pool, doctor's surgery at Bransby Park? That was the full extent of the survey. If you take the 163...
Would you be kind enough to round up, Mr. Gardner? If that's all right.
It's literally the last sentence, thank you. If you take the number of 163, which we dispute, that would be 0.09% of the adult population of Portsmouth. Last sentence. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
You're welcome, sir. Thank you very much indeed. First, before I go to questions from the opposition spokespersons, I just want to come to Mr. Gardner, Mr. Moorman, I beg your pardon, to answer a couple of the issues which Mr. Gardner raised. And I'll be quite clear with you this morning, this afternoon. I am here principally to deal with the demolition or not of Eastney Swimming Pool. The issue of a new pool at Bransby Park, although it is intertwined, is not for me today. Those decisions are made by elsewhere, all right? Would you like to go ahead, Mr. Moore, and just answer some of the questions that that he raised, particularly around the... We will go on this bit about the survey, although it's not connected to this, but I accept that it kind of goes hand in glove.
So the survey I think you're referring to, Mr. Gardner, is not one that I was aware of. So as council officers, we conducted quite a bit of consultation prior to the planning application on Bransby Park. On 4 separate occasions, there was a full survey which was robustly conducted and has statistical analysis of it, which gives us a really good idea of the general views of the population of Portsmouth. So we take samples, like all political polling do, and we extrapolate based on those responses. And those have consistently shown support for the Bransby Park proposal. The survey that Councillor Vernon Jackson referred to in the meeting and that Mr. Gardner has picked up on was, I think, a Liberal Democrat canvassing exercise, which they're perfectly entitled to do. It wasn't part of the planning application. It wasn't a council officer-led survey, and it gave Councillor Vernon Jackson and his colleagues, I think, probably a reasonable indication of the views of the population. Certainly, Loxway Road is within the catchment area of Bransby Park, so so why not Loxway Road? I would say.
Yeah, that too. I attended the the planning committee stage as well, Mr. Gardner. I'll come to you ladies in just a moment. Ms. Gardner, I attended it. I heard that, and it was very clear from Councillor Vernon Jackson that that was something that he and his colleagues had done around that area. It was not a council survey. So, that is what they did. That's just a plain simple fact. The main focus around that part, at least, is the proper survey carried out by the City Council. Have you any, one moment sir, any idea about the cost of a floor that raises up and down? Could the council afford that in its budget with what we have anywhere right now?
The installation of moving floors is something that you don't retrospectively do. It requires you digging down deep into the ground to embed the machinery that you need to allow the floor to go up and down. So it would need completely remove the existing pool and to reinstall a new pool, which of course would cost exactly the same as the Bransbury pool.
All right. I'll allow you one go, sir, if that's all right.
It is a response.
Go on. That's it. And after that we really have to get on, if that's all right. We need to come to a conclusion sooner or later.
No problem. The council's planning application consultation, which was a year long, citywide, and they listed a whole load of methods they used to engage with the public, resulted in 35 people supporting the plans.
Yeah, thanks. As I can only reiterate, I'm here today to consider the question of demolishing it or not, and to hear evidence about why it should be retained or why it should not be retained. Okay, and I need to really stick to that. So what happened in the planning committee, it's in the back of my mind, is not affecting my thinking today.
My question, Chair, is about the current pre-action protocol notice and the JR notice served on the council to the city solicitors. Like Mr. Gardner said, have we sought legal advice for this decision to be made today, or should we push it back to make sure that we're not in any legal?
No, I'm fully entitled to make this decision today. If they want to review the city council's planning decision, that's a matter for another place, but not here today.
I was under. It was a pre-action protocol about this notice. Is that not what you meant?
The problem we've got is inextricably linked. If Bransbury Park goes ahead, there's not much point in saving Eastney Pool, because you have two pools 0.6 miles apart. So we have to be frank, stop the Bransbury Park project, which we think is overpriced and loses too many sports facilities, in order to save Eastney Pool.
All right, so it's not. We'll come back to you in just a moment. Councillor Adnaran, would you just drag the mic towards you a little bit?
Yeah.
Give me a chance to hear.
Okay. My question to you is, I just wanted to confirm. Did you say 83% of
Ever so sorry, Councillor Adnaran, you need to address me, and if I think I want to involve them, I will do so, all right?
Okay. I think he mentioned that 83% of the residents, they are against demolishing the swimming pool.
I didn't quite hear all that, but you answered, Mr. Moorman.
Yeah, that's fine. So the the canvassing, the report that was brought, the 160 people in favour, with 83% of them in favour, which were presented to the planning committee. Lost my way. You asked the question again.
I just wanted to know if
So I remember now. So yeah, it was
if
83%
of the residents are actually against
No.
demolition of the Eastney Brown.
83% of residents are in favour of the new leisure centre at Bransbury Park.
So I really do have to emphasise, councillors, that we're here today to consider the demolition or otherwise of Bransbury Park buildings, and that the planning process or the decision by the council to do the Bransbury swimming pool isn't before us today. It's about the demolition of the swimming pool. And there's nothing
Yes.
that I can do or say that would change that, sir. Beg your pardon?
Sorry. Yes, I agree with you to some extent, but if the decision we want to make today is involve the resident, I think we need, because they are the center of what we want to discuss today, and then about the demolition of the Bransbury. So I don't know how we are going to do this, because I think they need to be involved as well, because
Let me help you out here. Even if I was convinced by the arguments put before me today to retain the swimming pool, it wouldn't very much change the decision around Bransbury Park, because the money is in the budget to do it. Equally, there is money within the budget to demolish this building, £100,000 worth. So it is just a decision about the demolition or not of the buildings.
Okay, so it says on this report that no works have been done to this premises since the 1980s, apart from remedial. Why is that?
It's been maintained, but no structural changes have been done since the 1980s. So whilst day-to-day maintenance has been done, and maintenance of the mechanical and electrical systems, there hasn't been anything in the budget for large-scale life cycle replacement of things like the roof. They would require a capital bid and a budgetary decision as to whether that's the right thing to do. That decision was taken in 2021 when the council decided, instead of refurbishing Eastney Swimming Pool, a new roof, etc., the money for that would be better spent on a new facility in Bransbury Park. And so since then, no money has been spent on it.
So no money since 1980s has been dedicated to redoing any part of Eastney Pools, is what I've just got from you.
No, money's been spent on maintaining it, but there's been no money spent on new roofs, new walls, new windows, new doors, that kind of thing.
My question is why?
Sorry, did you say the 1980s?
In this report.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm very well aware that I was in the chair. The swimming pool was open all those years ago, and people were using it. But the cost of maintaining it was becoming really difficult, and it was forever being closed because the groundwater would seep into the bottom of the pool, and therefore it had to be closed and the water pumped out and got rid of. The plant equipment was breaking down. I know this because I was in the chair. I know the plant equipment was breaking down, so people couldn't use it. The water was freezing cold, and all sorts of other things. So money was actually spent. Yeah, money was. What line are you on? Yeah, sure, I accept that. What line is it?
It's just remedial, and it's just saying about how they've done surveys. So even on the closure in the 2020, but then on page 2, it just says additions and alterations. I can't see anywhere where they've done anything like replace the bottom of the pool or anything like that. So I'm just trying to figure out why it's been left so long.
Yeah, so I can assure you, and Mr. Moorman can put me right if I'm wrong, that the swimming pool was open, but was forever being closed in a similar way, because I was in the chair and I was struggling with the pyramids forever shutting because of the bottom of the pool breaking open and the water flooding away, and in this one, the bottom of the pool opening up and the stuff coming in. It was a miserable affair around swimming pools at that time. But did you want to add anything to that, Mr. Moorman?
Just to say that there are maintenance and life cycle replacement budgets for our leisure facilities. They are stretched, and money has been spent to keep the buildings open. We maintain the systems and the structures as long as we can to keep the building open. From time to time, we need to completely replace things like the Mountbatten Centre roof. That required a separate capital bid, and that would have been the case for Eastney Roof if the decision hadn't been made to develop Bransbury instead. So we do spend when we can to keep buildings open, provided there's justification to do so.
You're right if I have a follow-up? It's just that you mentioned about the 50% use, but there's obviously no data in here, so I'm just trying to get where you did that survey. What area did you do it with? Was it the people that were visiting?
So the 50% use came from the Council's Sports Facilities Strategy, which was written in 2018, adopted in 2018, written by Strategic Leisure Limited. They did a comprehensive survey of all the The City Council's built sports facilities, including user groups, operators and everyone who used them, looked at timetabling, looked at income levels. So that is when Eastney Swimming Pool was open, before the pandemic, it was operating at about 50% utility. So essentially there was time when the pool was sitting empty where it could have been used. Mountbatten, for example, has a programme which is almost completely full from the beginning of the day to the end.
All right then, well, we're going to move on to comments. This is where the opposition spokespeople have a chance to put their views, and then I'll round it up afterwards, and then I will come to a decision, having listened to everybody.
For you, Chair.
Yeah. Who's going first?
I'll go first then, fine. Sorry to throw you under the bus, Chair, but just so the people at the back know, this isn't our decision, it's just Councillor Hunt's decision. We just get to scrutinise. So probably be slightly different. However, I still am not convinced this should be demolished. And I think it should be paused and explored. I get that there's no historic building, but what happened in that building is historic. And that's kind of the main reason this should be staying. So for me, I wouldn't agree with demolishing it at all. And that's my final comments.
All right. Yinka.
Yes, thank you, Leon, and everybody here.
I'm terribly sorry. I'm writing down at the same time. Would you mind? I'm really, really sorry.
Okay, so sorry.
That's much better.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, much better. Thank you.
Okay. I think I'm just going to go against demolition of this Eastney swimming pool, because I see no reason why the money you want to use to do another one in Bransbury cannot be used to retain this building and then put new or refurbish so that they can enjoy what they have been enjoying for the past years.
All right. I think that's all noted. I'm going to now go into a long narrative, okay, and then I'll come to my conclusion. Today I'm principally concerned with making a decision around the demolition or otherwise of the former swimming pool at Eastney, known as Eastney Swimming Pool. In the appendix, Historic England have reported it in its conclusion on June 17, 2021, that after receiving an application from Portsmouth City Council, it assessed the pool pool and buildings for listing, adding Portsmouth City Council has undertaken a consultation exercise on the future of the building with preferred option back in 2021 to demolish the building and provision of a new pool on another site. The conclusion of Historic England was that Eastney Swimming Pool does not have the requisite special architectural and historic interest in a national context to be listed. However, its historical interest with Eastney Barracks and Royal Marines in other words, we could look at it locally. The local planning authority actually looked at it and considered it not worthy of listing. There is a question of throwing good money after bad, and the council taxpayers rightly expect me and other councillors in making a decision to deliver value for money services. Wandering into what has gone on along the seafront, if this were demolished, and we have heard about the plans for a water sports centre at the location and a consultation that would follow from any decision to demolish today, it would see the World War II pillbox currently hidden in the site opened up to the public and create within the Seafront Master Plan, which I know intimately because I was the one that got it through all those years ago and has seen about 10 years ago, and has seen so much innovative change along the seafront. And this area of the seafront has become a hotspot for kiteboarding and kite surfing over the last decade. And this led a couple of years back to the city hosting the Formula Kite European Championships in 2023, where the young lady who won it went on to win the Olympic gold medal for Great Britain subsequently. And if this goes ahead today, creating a water sports centre will create a hub for these sports alongside others such as open water rowing, kayak, which we have already down on the South Sea Canoe Club, kayaking, stand-up paddleboarding, sports which are modern and young people very much like nowadays. And participants in these sports would have facilities to change, leave their valuables and shower afterwards, and so on. Such a facility would bookend the seafront with the hot walls and all the changes that we did around the hot walls back in, well, 10, 12 years ago. I can tell you now, that was opposed tooth and nail by residents in that location. And I went down and had to explain to them all the advantages. They were cross with me and cross with the council at that time, but look at it now. I mean, would honestly anybody ever go back to what it was before? Derelict arches with people sleeping in them, defecating in them and peeing in them. And we have a similar derelict building at this neck of the woods, which I note from the officers is a concern to the council because of the risk of people getting in there and danger of death, presumably by drowning. Such a new facility, if it were to be demolished today, would add to the vitality and vibrancy of the seafront and its visitor economy, including for local people. We have seen over the last decade new sea defences, opening Southsea Castle and the businesses therein when before it was shut to the public. Coming back to your point, Mr. Gardner, about utilising historic buildings, the same with the hot walls, the same with the square tower, putting vibrant businesses in there, creating income in order to support those older buildings. And we've done that very, very successfully all the way along the seafront. And we've seen the reconfiguration of the D-Day story and bringing in the landing craft. We've seen Victoria's Festival and all these other world-class events, including sail racing, the European Sailboarding Championships, and all the new tennis provision along the seafront. Now, I remember too doing the coffee cup. Oh my goodness, what a row over that. And people were so opposed to it. Terrible row, they said, shouldn't be done. It was going to be a blight on the seafront. And I bet some of you at least have been in there and enjoyed it now. And not saying that you're opposed to it, but that is what has happened. The coffee cup is a very popular destination along the seafront. And we were opposed by Labour on that. We were opposed by Labour on actually almost everything that we have done along the seafront. And we generally get opposition from our council colleagues when we try to do something that's innovative and different. So nobody opposes us on the bandstand events, but they are another feature of the seafront, a hugely successful event. Then there's the Pride events, music and food festivals. So that is the narrative around the seafront, delivering what is in the seafront strategy and the city plan, and we have stuck to that. It should not be new to anybody if they're interested in the seafront, because it's all there in the seafront master plan. This vision for this location is in the seafront master plan. It has been there for, I think, 10 years, and through 2 iterations of the seafront and 1 of the city local plan. Coming back to Mr. Gardner, your point, sir, about swimming pools. England has lost 400 swimming pools since 2010. 400, sir. In this city, The university has opened a new swimming pool. We are building a new we will be building a new swimming pool at Bransbury Park with a learner facility and a GP centre and a gym for local people. And what is important is that young people can enjoy it too. Then we are also investing in Hilsea Lido, bringing that back into use, and we retain the use of the Charter Academy swimming pool, which is 20 metres long, which is publicly accessible. So that's at least 4 in this city, whereas other cities are closing them down. And due to cuts across local government in the country, lots of councils are not only closing their swimming pools, but closing museums, closing libraries, closing community centres. Here, the reverse is true. We are opening new things, new and modern facilities to take our city proudly into the future. So that is the end of my narrative. I'm going to come to a conclusion now. So I have indeed, sir, considered everything that you have said. I take into account the obsolescence of the building, representations here today, and those that are known to me over several months from your group. I've taken into account the legal insurance implications and the risks of a vacant building and safety concerns. I've taken into account the officer's report and the representations made by councillors here. I've taken into account the conclusion of Historic England that there is no merit in keeping these buildings, at least no historical or architectural merit. I understand the budget of 100,000 to enable demolition, which is in the report. I also am aware that BH Live currently suffer the cost of its cloaked maintenance, but that will soon transfer to Portsmouth Council taxpayers, the cost of maintaining the building. But in coming to a decision, I also take into account the former pool is no good for disabled access, where the new pool will be fully accessible. That the new pool will be 75% bigger than the former pool, including a new learner pool for youngsters. I can't think of anything more important than to teach children how to swim in a learner pool. This has been in the city seafront plans for many years, as I said just now, as a site for a cafe or water sports venues. And I've decided that the demolition of EC swimming pool will go ahead to deliver value for money for Portsmouth Council taxpayers. It is therefore my decision to agree with the officer's recommendations within the report. Okay? So that's a long narrative, but I thought that the issue deserved to have a full explanation. So thank you all very much indeed for your attendance today. I know you're disappointed, and I'm very sorry, but we represent more than 20 people gathered in this room today. On the petitions, sir, on the petitions, I've never seen one, I've never had one sent to me, and I checked yesterday with planning, they've never had one, and I checked with Democratic Services, and they have never had one. So that's it, sir, the item is over, the decision has been made. As I say, I thank you all very much for your kindness in attending, and thank you all very much for your barracking and whatnot. It's most welcome, okay? And I understand your very passionate feelings. Thank you all very much. Good. Right, now we get back to the running order of the agenda. So parks, fees and charges. Adrian, I presume you're doing this one?
Thank you, Councillor Hunt. So this report is seeking approval for the proposed changes to fees and charges towards use of parks facilities in the next financial year. In the majority of cases, the increases are in line with Consumer Price Index, but just to pick out some exceptions to this, the site hire fees now show separate charges for Victoria Park for both outdoor events and those using the new Greenhouse Community Hub. To date, bookings in the building have not been chargeable to support early use by the project partners and those delivering activities that meet the project outcomes. But we do need to look at income to support the ongoing maintenance of the building and the park, and therefore, having benchmarked charges with other local community facilities and engagement with existing users, now show a range of charges for building use. Sports charges in the main do increase in line with CPI, but golf course charges are more carefully targeted where there's opportunity to increase so that it protects the long-term income through the retention of season ticket holders and pay-and-play use that has increased in recent years. This is largely down to offering very good value locally, presenting a well-maintained course and ensuring customer satisfaction levels are high. From the 1st of April, season tickets are proposed to increase between £10 and £20 for adult 7-day and intermediate age maxi tickets, and for adult and senior citizen flexi tickets. Analysis has also shown that the course operates close to capacity on a Friday, and the number of rounds played is very close to weekend levels. Therefore, we propose that green fees and flexi ticket start fees are split into Monday to Thursday and Friday to Saturday bands, with no increase to standard rates. Green fees for off-peak, reduced course and midweek 11-hole tickets are proposed to increase by £1. We also propose to align senior citizen rates with state pension age, meaning these will apply to those aged 66 or over rather than aged 65 as it is now. Thank you.
Councillors, any questions on this one?
It might be a silly question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Site fees, it says small local community / local charity events. It's obviously free. What size of a group is that? Because obviously the next it goes up to 250 people. So I'm just curious who classes as a small, is it 10 people? Is it 20 people, 50?
It would generally be used with some discretion at the point of application. It's generally aimed at sort of 50 people or local.
Anything, Councillor Adnan?
Yes, just to find out what percentage of increase.
So the Consumer Price Index, we used the rate that was applicable September last year. That's what's applied to all the charges. So that was 1.7 for this year. It will vary year on year for the 12-month rate. But the other charges we've just done with a targeted. So the golf is the exception, and that's targeted by those increases I mentioned. So I haven't got that as a percentage, but it's £10 on. So if you're talking about the adult 7-day, it's currently £689, and that would increase to £699. So it's above 1.7%, but it's not a huge rise.
All right then, I was all very sensible. It's only 1.7%. I know some people might say, we can't put things up, the cost of living and everything. However, if we do not allow charges to rise sensibly, we end up in a situation that Southampton is in, and that Hampshire is in, with massive holes in their financial, finance and budgets. And so they end up closing the very things that people don't want to see the cost rise for. So the golf course I know is really popular. I went up for a walk around there the other day with the staff. Everybody's very pleased. The greens are in good order. Whether or not we see Mr. Trump come, I don't know. I doubt it somehow. That was a very poor attempt at a Trump impersonation. But my other half, Richard, does it absolutely incredibly well. Beautifully, as Mr. Trump might say. So anyway, it's a sensible report. I don't have any issues with it, so I will agree with the officer's recommendations. All right? Now, this is one of these information reports that I wanted brought to the basically for your enjoyment and information and whatever else, because I think it's important for us all to keep up together with what actually goes on the ground and in the ground. Adrian very kindly agreed to pull together a report that sets out how well we are doing around tree planting, which we all know is really important. So Adrian, if you'd be kind enough to introduce your noting report.
Thank you, Councillor Hunt. So this is an information-only report following your request for an update on the work associated to planting new trees in the city and on council land in the 24-25 planting season. This report has been informed by work taking place across directorates, and that's coordinated through the Cross-Directorate Resilient Treescape Group. And I have to highlight that Rachel Brown, the Green and Healthy City Engagement Officer, has been central to this. Much of this year's planting will be funded by external funding from the Urban Tree Challenge Fund and Local Authority Treescapes Fund that Rachel has administered for the planting of whips and standard trees across the city's varied landscape, and allows for maintenance costs for the first 3 years to ensure that the trees establish. As the report shows, it's planned that just under 2,500 trees will be planted on council sites this autumn and winter, and at sites identified by service teams representing parks, housing, highways and landscape architects. The report notes that around 300 trees are being added to playgrounds and play spaces to support providing shade and cool spaces where children play. The report also notes that planting days have been advertised for volunteer participation and the additional work of the Portsmouth and Southsea and the Havant Tree Wardens. I'm aware there's a separate report being prepared for the Cabinet Member for Transport that has further information on the existing tree pit opportunities within the PFI highway network and the work that is taking place to utilise these. Thank you.
Yeah, indeed, we put a lot of pressure on Colas to get rid of the tarmac on top of the redundant tree pits. So they got away, or someone got away with just putting tarmac there. And if you go around, not all have been done, but if you go around, you'll see these tree pits being brought back into use. Certainly, wherever I go, I see this happening, not only in my patch. Do you have any questions at all? Go ahead.
I appreciate, I know you said you're doing a report for traffic, but it's just about the type of trees that are being planted, especially roots-wise. I'm under the illusion that someone said that the ones we're now planting, the roots go down rather than spread across. Is that something that's actually happening, or so it doesn't affect the pathways where we get to that same situation where they're spreading over to people's houses and stuff like that?
So the report I referred to, that's been separately compiled by the Highways PFI team for their Cabinet Member and specific to the tree pits. This was really to give an overall picture across the council. You're right, in terms of the where there's difficulty getting trees to establish in the highway, that's part of the work of the Cross-Directorate Working Group in terms of sharing good practice and understanding what might help the trees establish, different methodologies, tree species type, and where trees are suitable and perhaps not suitable in some of the locations. So I think there's definitely a lot closer scrutiny within the team in terms of before they replant or use existing vacant tree pits.
I will add that the new trees in Anchorage Park look wonderful.
Yeah, well done. I think you raise a really good issue, which officers I assume are aware of. I mean, for example, buckthorn has been used much more than it used to. Buckthorn is you can make a drink out of it. You can make we can make an alcoholic drink out of anything, quite frankly. But it's used to flavour an alcoholic drink. And it's a little yellow berry, and it's very pretty, and it goes up the middle of the M275. I won't call it Central Reservation because it's not that anymore. But all that awful stuff was dragged out of there. These great big leaves, and all this new plant was put in many years ago. But that's going on around the city. And also, I hope that we're getting. I mean, cherry trees are very nice. They really are nice, and there's a lot have gone in and around Buckland, but they don't last all that long. They last about 10 years, I think, Mr. Rosie, or thereabouts. But they are lovely, particularly winter flowering cherries. But the main thing is more trees are being planted and more indigenous trees are being planted, but they have to reflect, whether we like it or not, or believe in it or not, the warmer weather. And that's what's going on. But this report is come here. You've seen 2,500 trees in this planting cycle on top of many more previously. So we are getting on with that, and I hope that you will take that back to your groups for their information as well. All right, thank you very much, Mr. Rosie, for doing that. That's very good of you. So now we'll come on to Mr. Furman and the unauthorised encampments, which is very good news.
Thank you, Councillor Hunt. Good afternoon, councillors. So the purpose of the report is to update you on unauthorised encampments in Portsmouth and on Portsmouth City Council land in 2024. I would assume that you've read the report, but wanted to highlight a couple of points. Firstly, the community warden team will remain the lead in responding to unauthorised encampments in the city and PCC land holding outside of the city. They respond to reports of encampments, assessing the size and makeup, whilst also carrying out welfare checks. The community warden team will then liaise with departmental landowners and, of course, the police. Secondly, I or someone from my service attend the police daily management meetings where we're able to provide an update on our actions, or where necessary, highlight issues within an encampment. So, moving on to 2024, there were 12 encampments in total, and Appendix 1 and 2 show the location and average duration of the encampments we experienced. Whilst you'll see there was a significant reduction in the number of encampments from the previous year, we are unable to establish why this is. Our colleagues across the council continue to work together to ensure we keep sites secure. It is also worth noting that the proactive partnership working with the police has meant that any issues have been escalated quickly and dealt with as necessary. Finally, just to say, we'll be meeting with the police and other council teams shortly to discuss events and to our response for 2025. Thank you.
Any questions? So unauthorised encampments continue on a downward trend, which is reflected, I think, and you tell me if I'm wrong, but I think it reflects the fact that on the common, for example, we have so many more events. And this means that if the police attend, they use their powers to move them on immediately, because it would interrupt things like, Victoria's Festival, bandstand events, Pride, food festivals, the Great South Run, all those other things I mentioned earlier on. And that, I think that's about right, isn't it?
Yes, yeah, that's correct. Yeah, they can serve Section 61. And obviously last year we had D-Day and other events on there, so they were very proactive in doing that.
Yeah, and every year we seem to increase the number of events. And also, of course, we put in hardening around a lot of our sites, and including up in Paul's Grove, looking after the land up there with hooded locks to try, although they, in one occasion, I believe that the hooded lock was melted off with acid and entry was gained. Am I about right there?
Yeah, we did a lot of work at the end of 23 target hardening vulnerable sites, and I think although we can't say that is why obviously the numbers are down, I think it all comes into that bit, yeah. So there's a lot of preventative work, and we continue to do further work up in Havant, which is Stockheath Common, where we've had 4 encampments. We've got some capital bid money where we're just looking at working with our colleagues in Havant just to get planning permission to try and stop that then as well.
That's Portsmouth City Council then. All right. So that's good news. Thank you all very much. Would you once again pass on all of our thanks here to the wardens and everyone who helps us with this. Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Furman, for your report. Okay, so we're on to agenda item 6 now, which is the private sector housing fees and charges. Sam.
Yeah, thank you. So similar to my colleagues, I'll assume that everyone's had an opportunity to read the report, so I'll just summarise its content. It's an information-only report, but was presented for decision on the 19th of February. The purpose of the report is to present the proposals relating to private sector housing chargeable services, and it's recommended that the report is noted. It's a regular report brought forward surrounding proposals for private sector housing fee adjustments for chargeable services with a view to achieve full cost recovery. So the background within the report outlines that both HMO licence fees and private sector housing enforcement fees require regular review to ensure these continue to achieve full cost recovery for the council in providing these services. Typically, a review takes place annually. However, due to the introduction of additional licensing and some changes that were made to mandatory licensing in late 2023, which included a review of licence fees at the time, a review was not carried out in April 24. So if I deal with the HMO licence fee element first, the report explains the legal criteria relating to HMO licensing as set out in the Housing Act 2004 and summarises that in Portsmouth an additional licensing scheme was introduced in September of 2023, bringing other HMOs that do not fall within the normal scope of mandatory licensing into our scheme within Portsmouth. So local HMO licensing criteria means that licence holders will either be granted a 1, 2.5 or 5-year licence depending on their level of compliance, assessed through an adopted criteria which was agreed by Cabinet in 2023. That criteria is designed to demonstrate effective safety and management practices within HMOs, whereby essentially fully compliant landlords are given a longer licence length compared with less compliant landlords, essentially encouraging well-performing landlords as longer licences are more cost-effective and allowing the council to target its resources better towards poorer performing landlords. The Housing Act allows local authorities to recover their costs associated with operating HMO licensing schemes. So fees will be dependent on how HMO licensing is regulated area to area based on the local need. Everywhere though, fees must be reasonable, proportionate and must not make a profit. Local authorities have a duty to charge fees where there is a lawful mechanism to do so in order to protect the interest of council taxpayers under the general principle that licensing activities should not be funded by the public. A recent financial review highlighted that several costs incurred by the council in operating these schemes will increase in the new financial year. Most notably, staffing costs have increased as a result of annual staff salary costs, coupled with the recent increases in employer national insurance contributions. So as a result, in order to continue to achieve full cost recovery, an increase of 11% in HMO licence fees was applied in February, which represents an average increase of around £1.43 to £2 per month, depending on the size of the property, based on an average licence length. So I'll now move on to the enforcement charges element. So as well as the HMO licensing fees, the report also covers proposed fee increases relating to private sector housing's enforcement powers under regulatory functions that apply to the entire private rented sector. The ability to charge for this enforcement activity is covered within the primary legislation and explained within private sector housing's enforcement policy. Recoverable expenses relate to the cost of officer time, including the process of identifying the correct legal action, identifying what action should be covered under that notice, and actually issuing the notice itself. Again, a review of costs associated with carrying out those activities set against an existing framework has been carried out, and similar with HMO licensing fees, a number of costs incurred in carrying out that activity have increased. Again, most notably, staffing salary costs and the employer national insurance contributions. So as a result, an increase of 11% was again applied in February to the enforcement fees laid out within Appendix 2 of the report, and that was in order to continue to achieve full cost recovery. That represents an increase of around £72 based on a typical enforcement action, such as an improvement notice. Again, the same principle around HMO licensing applies here, in that charging for that activity protects local council taxpayers, particularly where enforcement is necessary to deal with a legislative breach. So just in summary, regulatory services detailed within the report were reviewed and required fee increases in order to continue to achieve full cost recovery. Recommendations held in the original decision report were adopted, namely that both set of chargeable services will increase effective from the 1st of April this year, and that includes HMO license fees, HMO licenses where they are due to expire on or after the 1st of April of this year. A similar report will be brought forward next year following a financial review of both chargeable services. Thank you very much.
All right. So this first, if you remember from the briefing, this first went to Councillor Sanders, and then it's come here. He made the decision to agree it, and then noting for here, and I couldn't say anything to disagree with anyway. You'll be aware of the determination of the council to get on top of road landlords and so on. We know not all are road, but there are very good examples recently where we prosecuted people utilising this money to safeguard people who live in them and neighbours as well. So I'm not going to go through all of that. I did it in the full council recently. It's been trailed in the press, but good work is being done constantly, and it's going on as we speak now, because we are looking for premises that are not licensed or don't have planning permission. They're actively being looked for, and when they are found, then they'll be dealt with. All right. Thank you for your forbearance today. Thank you for showing up. And I'm afraid it is kind of one-way traffic with this style of local government. It used to be that all members would sit on a committee, and there would be the officers over there, and there would be the members on that side, including the administration members, and generally they had more because of the voting, and then you would have the opposition members as well. And sometimes they used to be more opposition members than administration members, and they used to outvote the administration members, which was much better. It was much better because it was more democratic, and I accept that this has its failings, but it also has some advantages too. They allegedly, it was changed in order to speed up decision making, but maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. But I preferred it before because it was fairer, I think, because everybody got to have a say. All right, so that concludes the meeting, I think. At what time is it? Pardon? Okay. Thank you all very much for your attendance again. Thank you to the ladies in the gallery.